This is Rob Stokey with Rob Stokey Golf. Today I want to talk about wedges. I want to see if I can help you score better around the green by making this very simple. First of all, we have to understand how a wedge works. A wedge is built with what we call bounce. It's built into the club and it's designed to help you loft the ball in the air without the club digging or skidding across the ground. Easily defined, bounce is the angle that the trailing edge is higher than the leading edge. All clubs are going to have some sort of bounce. Some irons may have zero bounce or even negative bounce, but your wedges are going to have a good amount of bounce on there for the most part. I define wedges between two different things. They're either letters or numbers. So if you have a wedge that says S or P or L, sand, pitch, lob, G for gap or U for utility, numbers are going to have the loft on there. So they're going to have 56, 54, 58, things like that. Usually with a number, when you have a loft on there, you're going to have some sort of a bounce number on there. Sometimes some companies will use dots to show it, but other numbers will have, other companies will have a bounce. 12, 14, 8, things like that. The higher the number, the higher the degree of bounce. And what we need to do to be a really good wedge player is learn how to use that bounce effectively. How do we use the bounce? The bounce is there to keep that club, as I said, from digging into the ground. So really we want to let the back edge or let the bounce come through there. Thing to know, bounce can be affected by a variety of different things, not just the angle on there, but the width of the sole of your wedge, the camber, how much it's rounded, even grinding can change the bounce. So it's good to get fit for a wedge, but once you do, it's good to learn how to use it. So what we want to do is we want to understand how we can engage that bounce and get it more active. A lot of people that I see when they're struggling with wedges tend to set up to a golf ball. They get that shaft leaning very far forward. They've been told, get your weight on your left side and lean that shaft forward. You're going to hit down on it. They get in there, and what they've done is they've really negated any bounce that's in there. That leading edge is going to hit, and when that leading edge hits, you have to have a lot of bounce behind there if you're going to really lean that shaft. Otherwise, the back edge of the club is never really going to have any effect on it. So what I'd like for you to do, let's start out and let's set the shaft down what I call neutral. And I want to try to feel like the whole base of the club is on the ground. All right, so we've got that. You're going to feel, and we have a saying in the teaching industry that feel isn't real. You're going to feel like the shaft is leaning way back. Trust me, it's not. You can monitor it, look in the mirror, but the thing is, it's going to feel like it's back, especially if you've been one of these players with the handle really far forward. So I want you to set the shaft down and just let it sole on the ground the way it would. It's going to feel what we call neutral. The shaft's going to be neutral. It won't be straight up and down, but it'll be fairly straight up and down. It'll have a little lean to it. And I want you to make some swings. Very soft arms at first. We'll get into some other motions here in a second. But I want you to try to make the divot with the trailing edge of the club. I want you to feel that the back edge of the club is hitting the ground, okay? And as you do that, if your arms are just soft, you're just swinging, you'll notice that there's not a lot of divot. You may brush a little grass off there. And that's what I want you to feel. The back edge of the club is brushing the grass. That's what's making the divot. And as you start doing that, you'll find that if the leading edge gets in there and takes over, we're gonna stick it in the dirt. We're gonna hit that kind of fat shot that just stops in the ground. So let's make a couple swings like that and see if you can get that sensation of the trailing edge making the divot. Okay, so now that we've felt the back edge of the club brushing the grass, let's put it into execution. First thing I want you to do before we hit some balls is I don't want you to worry about where the first few shots go. This is a new feeling, it's a new learning experience. So what I'd like for you to do is we're going to hit a couple shots. Don't be concerned if they go shorter or farther or they aren't as solid or they feel different than what you're accustomed to feeling. But we're just going to set up here, engage that bounce by letting the shaft sit fairly neutral, the trailing edge is on the ground, and we'll talk about the other setup things and swing here in a second. But now I just want you to make a swing just like you were when there was no ball, and just get the feeling that that trailing edge hits the ground. And the great thing about this is you can actually hit this ball slightly behind it if you're using the bounce, and it's still going to be a very acceptable shot. So that's something I want you to understand, where if we're leaning that shaft in, digging it in, the misses are just across the board. So after you've hit a couple shots, just trying to get that feeling, I'm sure it felt different if you're not used to doing this. Letting that trailing edge hit the ground, you might have hit a couple thin, you might have hit a couple fat. I want to talk about those kind of shots real quick, let you understand what you need to be doing and some common faults in the wedge game. One of the things that I see a lot, I see this all the way through the ranks, is people set up and they say, okay, I've been told to put all my weight on my front foot. So they set up here and they put all their weight, what they feel is all their weight on their front foot. Their upper body actually angles back. Now, all I've done is I've really leaned that shaft forward. I've taken away the bounce that we just tried to put in there. Now, if I really went up here and pulled my hands back, now I'd really be in a mess. So what I want you to do is just set up, just stand there like you're talking to me, about, you know, nice feet, comfortable distance apart, not too wide, fairly narrow. Set up there, and once you get set up, I just want you to take the buttons of your shirt or take your sternum and just tilt it just an inch or two towards the target. Now what that's going to do is that's going to put a little bit of pressure on that left side. It's not shoving your hips forward, it's just leaning a little bit so your right shoulder, or for a right-handed player, may feel a little higher. Now that shaft can sit neutral. Now from here, the other big thing that I see is a lot of times people have so much tension in their arms that the club never gets to the ground. I tell students every day, you're defying gravity. If I make a swing and the club doesn't hit the ground, I've defied gravity. If I let the club fall, it's going to hit the ground. So if I have soft arms and I'm making a decent pivot, that club should brush the ground as I come through. So we're going to set up, tilt just a fraction over there to put a little bit of pressure on there. Our arms are going to be soft, and now the easiest way to think about this is to set up and take your core, take your belly, and just make a couple swings where you feel like you're taking your belly button and moving it towards your left heel and up a little bit. So I'm going to try to feel like I'm moving my core towards my left heel or my front foot and up over that angle of my ankle there, coming up my leg. And if I do that and I didn't have a club in my hand, my arms would follow along, okay? And as my arms follow along, they're going to be soft. I'm not trying to swing this wedge with my arms. I'm not trying to do this. I'm just trying to let my arms be soft, a little connected, and the club comes through. One thing that I hear often from students when they're doing this is, well, isn't that a flipping motion? Your wrists are doing this. It is not a flip. It's not a cast. It's proper. It's how we want to do this. We want to have enough softness in our forearms and our wrists that club will swing. Our body pivot is what's creating the distance. So as we're feeling this shot, we're setting up there, we're feeling our body, our core turning through there towards the front foot and slightly upwards as we come through. If I hit a thin shot, I hear people say all the time they hit a thin one that goes a couple feet off the ground and goes way too far. Oh my gosh, I raised my head. No, you did not, and you're not raising your head. And I certainly don't want you to keep your head feeling like it's fixed and down. I see this a lot too. That's the same thing. The body tends to go into like a lockdown motion when we don't have trust, when we don't feel good, and all of a sudden it's all arms and hands. The arms and hands have their place, but I really want to let those arms and hands be soft and allow the wrists to hinge and unhinge naturally, letting that body work around. I want to talk to you real quick about a couple great drills to help improve your pitching. I was fortunate enough as a child and even through high school and college to learn from two of the best wedge players, short game players, and instructors in the world. Mr. Paul Runyon, who inspired my love of the short game and really got me into it, and then Jim Flick, who I saw pretty much every year up until he passed away a couple years ago. When I was working for and under Mr. Flick, what he would tell me is, I watched him talk about bounce a lot, and this is when it wasn't very well known. He had a great drill that he worked with everybody from tour players to amateurs on. It's going to defy what you always hear about wedges, but it'll allow you to maybe for the first time in your life feel what the bounce does. And that's if you just set up to a ball and lift your front foot off the ground, just put your toe down for balance, and then just make a couple little small swings. Okay, that's going to force you, yes, your weight, your pressure is back. This is a drill. It's not what I'm saying you need to do on the golf course, but it is a great way to get you out of that head down, shaft leaning forward, sticking it in the dirt. So you can set up here and just make a couple swings with that heel of the front foot off the ground, and the ball will come out very high with a lot of spin, and you can, for the first time, maybe for a lot of people, this is an eye-opener, because you'll feel how that shaft works and how the bounce is engaged, how it kind of bruises the turf a little bit and launches that ball up. A real common question I get a lot with wedges is, well, how do I control the distance? Do I take it back a certain distance? I'll have a clock method, back to here, whatever. I'm not a big proponent of that. I know that has worked for a lot of people. But I think especially at the amateur level, without a ton of time to practice and really ingrain that, a lot of times people think they go back to what may be 8 o'clock. They really go back to here, and I think there's that split second in the golf swing on the golf course where your body knows that and it says, oh no, I went back too far, and then it might try to slow that swing down, or I went too short and try to accelerate it. I like to think about it, if I was tossing a ball, I wouldn't think about how far my arm went back. My lower body would be engaged. It would shift through there a little bit. So I prefer for players to see if they can learn how to use their pivot, like we were talking about, moving that core, moving that belly through there to create their distance. So if I wanted to make a shorter shot, my pivot might be a little less aggressive going through. If I wanted to make a longer shot, my pivot might be farther or faster going through there. I never really worry about how far I go back. My body will take care of that. Athletically, it will do that. So take a handful of balls, and once you get your setup, make some swings where you feel like you pivot a little less. Then make some swings where you feel a little bit more of an aggressive pivot through there, and see if you can find how you feel you can create that distance. Play some little games like leapfrog, where you hit one ball maybe 10 steps and then try to hit the next one a couple steps past that, the next one a couple steps past that, and you'll kind of find where your thresholds are with that. So we've covered a lot of stuff in a short time. First is bounce. If you really need to check with your local professional or myself if you're in the area, and we can get you fit and check the bounce on your clubs, make sure we have the right bounce, make sure we learn how to use that bounce, so we're going to feel like that trailing edge is kind of making the divot, bruising the ground a little bit down there, setting up with the shaft a little more neutral. We're going to set up, feel just a slight tilt of the sternum towards the target, just putting a little pressure on that left side. And then we're going to let that core move towards the target and then up and back. So it's going to really move up over that front foot going through there. That's going to allow the arms to be soft. The club will come through there, bruise the turf a little bit. We'll get great control, great consistency. You'll notice increased spin. For those of you that are used to, having a lot of shaft lean on there, you may notice a little bit higher ball flight at first, but the payoffs are worth it. Spend a little bit of time practicing this. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. I'd love to help you out. Shoot me a video of your wedge swing, and we'll see if we can't get you scoring better. Thanks.